We've all seen Home Alone, right? A kid left behind, outsmarting a couple of clumsy burglars with hilarious booby traps. Christmas classic, a feel-good family comedy. But what if the reality was ... Being home alone wasn't a funny adventure, but a terrifying nightmare. Today, we're stepping out of the holiday cheer and into the shadows. There are 5 true stories that twist the beloved Home Alone scenario into something truly horrifying. Stories of real people, real invasions, and real terror that will make you double-check your locks tonight. So settle in, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself. This isn't Hollywood. This is real life. First story takes us to a quiet suburban street, the kind where everyone knows each other and nothing bad ever happens. So they thought, 14-year-old girl, let's call her Sarah, was home alone one afternoon, finishing up her homework. Parents were just running a few errands, expected back any minute. Heard a noise from downstairs, a faint scraping sound at the back door. She figured it was just the wind or maybe the family dog shifting in its sleep. But then she heard it again, louder this time. Distinct click, as if a lock was being picked. Heart started pounding in her chest. This wasn't the wind. Looking from the top of the stairs, her blood ran cold. And she had never seen before was stepping into her kitchen. Tall, dressed in dark clothing, and moving with a quiet confidence that was absolutely chilling. She scrambled back into her bedroom, her mind racing. There was no time to call the police. He was already inside. She remembered the heavy oak dresser against her wall. A surge of adrenaline she never knew she had. She started pushing it, inch by painful inch, until it barricaded the door. Then grabbed her cell phone and crawled into the closet, pulling clothes over herself. Could hear him moving through the house, opening drawers, rummaging through their belongings. Then, the footsteps started up the stairs. One slow, deliberate step after another. Her breath hitched in her throat. Tried her bedroom door handle. It didn't budge. Pushed. Dresser held firm. Grunted in frustration and pushed harder, the wood groaning under the pressure. Sarah sat in the dark, tears streaming down her face, listening to the stranger trying to break into her room. Could hear him muttering angrily on the other side of the door. For what felt like an eternity, the noises stopped. Heard him go back downstairs, and a few minutes later, the sound of the back door closing. Didn't move for another 20 minutes, too terrified to even breathe. When her parents' car pulled into the driveway, she finally let out a sob of relief. Police later said the dresser likely saved her from a terrifying confrontation. It wasn't a clever booby trap, just pure, desperate fear. Next, we traveled to rural Texas. A 16-year-old boy named Ben was looking after his family Jess Ranch while his parents were away for the weekend. On the second night, something felt off. The dogs, usually calm, were barking restlessly towards the edge of the property. He went outside with a flashlight, but saw nothing. He chalked it up to a coyote and went back inside, locking the door behind him. 2 figures were silhouetted against the moonlight, streaming through a broken window. They were ransacking the place, tossing furniture aside. He knew he had 2 choices: hide and hope they didn't find him, or confront them. He took a deep breath, raised the rifle, and shouted, "Get out of my house! I've called the cops!" Ears froze. One of them turned, and Ben could see a glint of metal in his hand. A gun. "Down, kid," the man snarled. "Don't be a hero?" His mind was a blur of fear and adrenaline. Remembered his dad Zeth's words. Never point it unless you're ready to use it. He fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The explosion was deafening in the enclosed space. Plaster rained down. 2 intruders didn't hesitate. They scrambled back out the broken window and disappeared into the night. He spent the rest of the night huddled in his room with the rifle, watching the sunrise. Intruders were never caught, but they left behind a shattered sense of security that Ben would never fully recover. Third story comes from an apartment complex in a bustling city. A young woman in her early 20s, Maya, was enjoying a quiet evening in. She lived on the 3rd floor and always felt relatively safe. She was watching a movie when she heard a strange thud on her balcony. Confused, she muted the TV and listened. Silence. She dismissed it, thinking maybe a bird had hit the glass. Minutes later, she heard it again, followed by a scraping sound. This was different. This was deliberate. Panic set in. Maya's front door had a deadbolt and a chain, but the flimsy lock on the sliding door was her only defense. She was dialing 911, the lock gave way, and the door slid open. A man wearing a hoodie stepped inside. He saw her, and his eyes widened, maybe in surprise that she was home. "Give me your wallet and laptop," he said, his voice shaky but menacing. "Nobody has to get hurt." I was frozen in terror. But as the 911 operator's voice came on the line, something snapped inside her. Screamed. Not a small yelp, but a raw, primal scream that echoed through the apartment. Didn't stop. Just kept screaming at the top of her lungs. The intruder was completely thrown off. He hadn't expected this. He hesitated for a second, then turned and bolted back onto the balcony. Maya heard him scrambling down, and then he was gone. Police arrived minutes later, but he had vanished. Told her that her screaming probably scared him off more effectively than any weapon could have. Sometimes the most primitive defense is the most powerful. A college student named Liam was house-sitting for a professor who was out of the country. The house was large and isolated, surrounded by woods. As the snow piled up outside, Liam felt like he was in his own little snow globe. Liam lit some candles and settled in with a book, the only sound being the howling wind. Until he heard another sound. Rhythmic tapping. Tap. 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 Coming from the basement window, a small window barely visible above the snowdrifts. He tried to ignore it, telling himself it was a branch hitting the glass. But the tapping was too steady, too intentional. He opened it. The cold air rushed up to meet him. Shined the light down the stairs. The tapping stopped. He scanned the small basement windows. Then went through the entire house, locking every window and door, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Spent the rest of the night wide awake, listening to the wind, jumping at every creak and groan of the old house. Never found out who was outside that night. Was it someone seeking shelter from the storm or someone with more sinister intentions? The final story is perhaps the most chilling. It involves a young couple, Chloe and David, who had just moved into their dream home. One night, David had to work a late shift, leaving Chloe home alone for the first time in their new place. Around midnight, she was in bed reading when she heard a floorboard creak in the hallway. She held her breath. The house was old. It made noises, but then she heard another, closer this time. It sounded like footsteps, soft, shuffling footsteps. She called out David's name, thinking maybe he came home early. There was no reply. The operator told her to stay on the line and stay quiet. While she was huddled in her room, waiting, she heard a new sound. It was coming from inside her bedroom closet. A slow, quiet sneeze. Chloe felt a terror so profound it was paralyzing. Dropped the phone and ran, not even stopping to unlock the door, but crashing through it with sheer force. Sprinted out of the house and didn't stop running until she saw the flashing lights of the police cars racing down her street. They searched the house, they found him. The man had been squatting in their attic for days, coming down at night to steal food. He had been watching them. At night, he had decided to come down while Chloe was still awake. He had heard her moving and slipped into her bedroom closet to hide. Footsteps she heard in the hall were a decoy. He was already there. Stories aren't meant to make you live in fear, but to serve as a stark reminder. The world can be an unpredictable place, and the safety of our own homes isn't always guaranteed. Like the movie, there are no funny traps, no bumbling villains, and no guaranteed happy ending. It's just the terrifying reality of a locked door being the only thing between you and a nightmare. Tonight, when you lock your doors, maybe add a little extra check. It's a small action, but as these stories show, it can make all the difference. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to follow for more true stories from the dark side.